This is Court Storming with your host, Perry Sook.
Hello and welcome to Court Storming, everyone. We have a very different show today than I thought we were going to be having. There have been 3 games since we last spoke to you here on Court Storming, and 2 of them were wins. The New Year's Eve curse was bucked with a win over Georgetown, and I thought we would be celebrating that this team turned a corner. And instead, I'm angry. Instead, I'm raged. I am wearing black, possibly mourning the season that was, as St. John's has lost their worst game of the season. I think we can put it that simply. So I can't do it alone. I need to commiserate here. So joining me now is a very, very special guest. We have Newsday's Roger Rubin. So Roger, I don't want to start negative because I was so excited. I was so excited with, finishing out the Carnesecca slate with a win out of conference and looking pretty decent on offense and having Ian Jackson, scoring double digits again. Maybe we figured out the point guard situation. And then, by goodness, New Year's Eve, second half, that run happens, and all the threes happen, and Zuby goes off, and we're having a party. So I want to start there. So you were at those games. You saw them. You saw it in person. Just what stood out to you about what went right in the end of 2005 for the Johnnies?
Well, I mean, if you want to go back to the Harvard game, I mean, as you and I have discussed, Rick has said on a number of occasions that, you win by 30 points against, some mid-major type team. How much does it really do for you? But I do think that it got them going into a positive direction. What happened at Georgetown, I really thought St. John's had figured something out. First of all, they played this sort of inside-out kind of offense, which was very impressive with the defenses against them focused on the guys on the inside. They were able to kick it out to the perimeter, and St. John's got, 15 3-pointers. 4 different guys had at least 3. 2 guys had 4. And I thought maybe this is going to be the way that they go about winning. So, yeah, I thought that they really figured some things out. I'm also going to say that Georgetown's, the personnel on Georgetown, it's a very athletic team for the Big East. One of the more athletic teams from the Big East. And in terms of athleticism, they were completely outclassed by St. John's. And that sort of made me feel like, wow, they might be able to just be the more athletic team in almost every game in conference play. UConn, of course, accepted.
Yeah, no, I was right there with you. And that's what made me so happy about it. I mostly, because it felt like this team found an offensive identity. It was like, hey, we're going to go inside. We're going to take advantage of this front court that was so lauded with the Big East preseason player of the year in Zuby Ejiofor. And then we're going to kick outside, and that'll let guys like Sellers shoot. That'll let Ian Jackson get some off the ball, which he tends to do better, even though now they need him to play that point guard position seemingly. Dylan Darling even, went 3 for 3 from beyond the arc. And I love that. And the athleticism, it showed, and I love that as well because we've been sold on the amazing draft or transfer class that this team had. We've been sold on the fact that there were 2 McDonald's All-Americans on this roster. And we had been sold that these guys were the best available. Now, obviously, Rick did say he missed on 4 point guards in the portal who have kind of gone unnamed. But the guys that the Johnnies got, the fans were happy about. And everybody felt like, there was a reason they were preseason number 5. And I felt like the athleticism kind of finally showed there. And that was a great thing. Rick was also happy about how the team ended the year. So let's go ahead and take a quick listen to what Rick had to say following the big New Year's Eve win at Georgetown.
Well, I couldn't be prouder of our guys going into 2026. They've got some offensive weapons that are really tough to stop. And our messaging every time out of halftime is we've got to be the better offensive team tonight. Came out with great fire, and so did the team. We had that great run in the first half that got us the lead. It was a beautiful game to watch. Our defense wasn't great, but that's a credit to them.
Yeah, so exactly the things we said is what Rick said. Is this team had found some identity. It was their best offensive game, and I also. The last thing that I loved about this game, it came in threes. There was some adversity. This wasn't a coast-to-coast double-digit win. Georgetown took the lead multiple times, and we'll speak about the frailty of this team later, but that didn't show in Georgetown. This team showed some of that toughness of last year's team. This team showed some of that fire that you're expecting and hoping for coming off of, the tough team that nobody wanted to play last year. And that was great. And then obviously the biggest standout of the entire game was Zuby Ejiofor. Zuby going off again, having himself just a fantastic showing in that game, which enabled the threes, which enabled them to hit the program Big East record, 15 3-points, tying that record. Have you seen Zuby? So Zuby said, we want to look in the mirror and we want to really see ourselves, and the Big East play is where we need to turn the corner. He seemingly has. Have you seen something different with him, or do you think it's mostly just how they're playing him?
I don't think that I don't think that it has to do with the way that he's being played. And I sort of feel like Ejiofor always plays with effort. Even in the games where he's, getting, 11 points or 13 points, the guy is really hustling. Is he always as successful on the boards as he was last year? I don't know, but I also think that with all the switching, frequently when a shot goes up, he's been out guarding somebody who's a guard now, and maybe isn't in great position to get the rebound. But yeah, I think that defending the Big East championship is a thing that really matters to him. It really does. And I know that a lot of the guys who are playing alongside him are not people who were on the team that won the Big East championship. But they were all there to see the ring ceremony before the first game. They were all there to see the banner unveiled. And they all said, who wouldn't want to be a part of that?
Well, exactly, and that was the sales pitch. Come play for Rick Pitino and come defend the Big East, with the team that went 31-5 last year. But Zuby coming out and playing with that heart, I love. Even in the loss, 58 points and 25 boards the last two games. There are comparisons to the entire country when you look at the 30-point and 15-board game he had just over the weekend in the loss. It's awesome. It's awesome to see. And as you've said to me, the nicest guy in the world. And Rick says he's the guy he's going to, miss most in the world. Do you think this is, a level of, and we'll get to the Providence game where there were some missed boards and Rick was very clear about one missed defensive assignment. But do you think this is a level that is sustainable for Zuby throughout the very physical Big East season?
I actually think that it is. And if you don't mind my augmenting some of the points that you were making,
please.
In the Georgetown game, he also had 7 assists. He is the team's leader in assists, and that was sort of that. One of the things that just dialing back just a second. One of the things about that inside-out style of play, people may not realize it, but I broke it down by per minute. The top 4 assists per minute on St. John's roster are all forwards. It's Zuby, it's Hopkins, it's Prey, and it's Mitchell. Those are 1 through 4 per minute assists. So at least they were going into this most recent game. But yeah, I think that Zuby definitely can maintain this. And, he's a guy who I think really is changing. If you're an NBA team, do you not want a guy like that? I think you do.
I don't know why. I don't know why you wouldn't, because more than anything, even early season when he was stuffing the stat sheet, but in different ways. Not having the 25, 30-point games. But it was the heart and the defensive intensity. And by the way, that's not mentioning 2 steals in the Georgetown game and 2 steals and 3 blocks in the Providence game. So I am just.
He had those 2 games where he had back-to-back 8-block games. And I remember one of the broadcasters mentioned to me after the second one that he alone had more block shots than 50 programs in Division I.
Oh, exactly. No, the back-to-back 8-block games. And to be able to keep that up. Obviously not at that pace. I don't think anyone can do 8 blocks. More than 2 games in a row, I think would be outlandish. But it is just very, very fulfilling and very happy to see that. there was some positivity also from Rick on Zuby and what he said and what he thought the offense figured out, as well as Zuby's words on his performance against Georgetown. So we are going to go ahead and take a quick listen to that as well.
Zuby is not playing as well as he did last year, and I'm going to tell you why. Because last year's team got him the ball. Zuby's better than he was last year, and you're not getting him the ball. And we start getting him the ball in practice, and it just freed up so many of our shooters by getting him the ball. So I think they learned the most valuable lesson is when you feed Zuby, great things happen. Not only he scored, but he's willing to give it up as well. So we became a much better offensive team by working inside to out.
I always just pride myself on, just being a leader for the rest of the guys. Obviously, they're coming in from different programs and stuff. So, and they trust me. They trust me, my teammates, my coaching staff. So I just want to, just thank them all for, just believing me and trusting that I could be able to go out there and perform at the level that I did tonight. So, I have nothing else to really worry about. I just go out there and do what I know I'm capable of doing each and every night, and that's leading by example, leading by my my voice, and just everybody else follows.
So, Roger, unfortunately, that's where I have to end the positivity. I was so happy. New Year's Eve, hadn't won in 65 years. 65 years in New Year's Eve. I'm not going to ask your age, but I certainly wasn't around 65 years ago. And then, continued the – I didn't think so, Roger, and you look great. But, you never ask age on air. And then, they go out, they buck that trend. They beat Georgetown for the 10th time in a row. Which is with the athletes they have, very impressive. And we were flying high, but then the new year came, and then the Providence came, and things started bleak, and they're getting dirty in a hurry. And we're going to take a quick break, so I can take a quick breath before we come back, because Roger, this Providence game, it's taken years off my life. I feel like I was around 65 years ago, and we will talk about all of that when Court Storming returns.
Welcome back to Court Storming with Perry Sook.
All right, everyone, welcome back. As promised, it is time to talk about that Providence game. Now, if you know me as a person, if you know me as a reporter, and especially if you've watched this show, you know that for St. John's, I am more than just an objective reporter. I'm a fan. I got the jacket, I got the swag. All of this belongs to me. This is not props. These are personal possessions that I'm sharing with you. And I'm just going to say it. I'm hurting. I'm hurting right now. A preseason number 5 team is, as of today, there's 17 Big East games left, but as of today is a bubble team. And that hurts my heart a little bit. Joining us again, as he always does, we have Newsday's Roger Rubin. So, Roger, the juxtaposition of the best offensive performance of the year, where the team seems to find an identity, and then showed grit and showed toughness and showed their athleticism, juxtaposed to a 77-71 loss to a Providence team they had no right losing to, with the talent they have on this roster.
Boy, the list is long. I can tell you that, you and I were just talking about the Georgetown game and how I had been left with this impression that, hey, they figured something out. There's a way to play. You go inside, guys are open on the perimeter, and, you kick the ball out and they have open threes. Well, they weren't doing that from the very start, because the first 2 baskets of the game were Zuby taking 3-pointers. So there wasn't a lot of that. But again, there were problems with getting a defensive rebound to end a defensive possession. And I want to say that 23 second chance points in the game by Providence is not good.
It's unbelievable. I mean, you're coming off a game where you're 55.6% from beyond the arc. Zuby himself is 76.9%, field goal shooting, which is just an absurd number. And then you're sitting there at literally 28% field goal, 23%, missing 13 free throws. And then the one that broke my heart, the layups. Oh, my goodness. It was 6-4. I had it written down and I can't even find it. But 6 of 22. 6 of 22 on layups, and you'll see some of them in the middle right here.
None more painful than the one late in the game that Shannon didn't get.
Oh my God, they could have gone up 12, and to me that could have been a nail in the coffin, because then you finally got the lead back within 1 point of where it was, with the 13-point lead early, and it just doesn't fall, and then all of a sudden, Stefan Vakis goes off and can't be stopped, and you foul on a 3-point play. I do want to talk about you see my cute little things. I called it an oh no disaster, because things went wrong on both sides of the floor. I want to start on the O. We saw teams last year where players had bad shooting nights, but it wasn't really a historically good shooting team. And so when
you can say it was a bad shooting team.
Sure,
Last year's team was not a good shooting team.
Exactly. This team has shooters. This team can go 50% from beyond the arc. This team can go 56.6% from beyond the arc. How does everybody catch the bug and nobody can make a basket? I just that is what is baffling to me.
Coach Pitino suggested that the missed shots were affecting their confidence, which surprised me. I mean, certainly they didn't affect Sannon's confidence. He kept jacking him up until he was 1 for 12. But yeah, I mean, does it get into their heads? Yeah, it's funny because I understand that, like, we're talking about what wasn't working with the offense, because really only one guy came to play. Hopkins didn't produce very much on the offensive end either.
Not 9 points, but all of them were late, and
what Coach Pitino said after the game was that, like, they lost this game because of defense. Okay, now St. John's led by 10 points 2 different times in the second half, and they led by 5 points with just a little more than 3 minutes left, and Providence scored on they got points on all of their last 6 possessions, while St. John's didn't make a shot. St. John's got the game closing run was 14-3, and St. John's 3 points all came on free throws.
Right, didn't make a field goal.
But on the defensive side, there were mistakes. Okay, you brought up the 4-point play starts that game closing run. And I can tell you that Coach Pitino was none too pleased that Dylan Darling had fouled that particular guy, even though he was way off the 3-point arc. Yeah. That's the guy who you don't foul out there. So that got the thing started. But along the way, there was also one possession where St. John's was beat down the court for a basket. And then there was another possession where somehow, St. John's was able to get the miss that they were seeking to get from Providence, and a guard got an offensive rebound.
It alludes to that fact that the mental toughness is not just there. And this team, it's funny, when the offense is working, they seem to lock in better on defense. And really, you need to do the opposite. When you aren't making baskets, when shots aren't falling, when you have guys going 1 for 12, 3 for 13, 1 for 8, that's when you need to lock in your defense. I want to touch more on the defense and the mindset behind it, but you mentioned that Rick said that there was a confidence issue, and I do happen to have that soundbite with me, so we're going to take a quick listen to Rick's words from himself on what happened on the offensive end of the floor.
Just lost our confidence when we kept missing. And then they just wanted to feed Zuby the ball almost every time down the court because they lost their confidence. I mean, you got one player that's 1 for 12, you got another player 1 for 8, another player 1 for 4, another player 3 for 13. And it was just a one-man show tonight. Only one guy had it. So you had to look, every now and then, not this type of night, you're going to have a night like this. Even the crowd was like 50% Providence, which was disappointing. It was disappointing by us. Disappointing all the way around.
So that's what bothers me the most. I mean, we have the fact that they lose leads because St. John's, they've led in the second half of some point of all 5 losses, and on 3 of them in those losses have led by 10 or more points. That lacks a killer mentality. That lacks, to me, a toughness. Rick uses the word frailty, and we'll hear that sound bit a little later. So I want to get your take on that, because my question is, we know Rick is a master motivator. We know more than anything, more than X's and O's, more than game plans, he is a master motivator. We also talked about earlier in the season that Rick seemed like he was in a better mood than he'd been in a long time. Even after losses, was in a happy way. We weren't talking about lateral quickness. We weren't talking about guys not giving effort. We were talking about, yeah, some shots didn't go in. But even when he was being positive, saying, hey, you're going to have nights like this, he seems, I don't want to use the word defeated, but the spark of joy seems to have faded a little bit. And so when he uses frailty, to you, you know this man longer than I have, is that Rick being worn down a little bit by and not having all the answers for why this superstar team is unable to perform? Or is that Rick motivating so that these guys don't show frailty in the future?
I think it's interesting because when I heard the word frailty, like, okay, so here's some of the things. Frailty's a pretty powerful word to use in that situation. And so when I heard the word frailty, there are a few different things that came to mind for me. One of them is that, you know, when they haven't played well, he hasn't been especially hard on them when he's talking to us. And my sense is that maybe the mental makeup of this team is not one that can, you know, deal with being criticized hard by their coach in front of everybody, which is very different from last year's team. Also, you know, you mentioned mental toughness. I probably would have used the word grit. I'm not really sure that there's a lot of grit at, you know, that these guys are showing at the end. It's not fair probably for people to say like, yeah, Ian Jackson and Joe Santanen are supposed to be, you know, in that role or whatever, but like they're sophomores and, you know, Richmond was a full-grown adult fifth-year senior. And so I don't know that you can really expect that.
Coming off an NAT tournament championship,
but that finisher, that, you know, finish that team off thing is missing.
I think it stupendously is, because Zuby can't do it himself. He tried. He gave it everything he had yesterday. So my question for you, because I think leadership stems from performance a lot of time, on the court at least. And so, you know, if you get that guy to step up and be the finisher, be the throw it on the net guy who's not Zuby, because it's got to be Zuby and somebody else. It's, you know, it's Batman and Robin, and he's probably Batman most of the time, but you'd probably prefer if he was Robin from a shooting perspective. Rick even said it, if they're shooting, you know, if Zuby's your deep threat, you're in trouble that night. Who can be that guy, Roger?
Well, I mean, I think everybody thought it was going to be Hopkins. I mean, Hopkins is a former first-team All-Big East player. Now, I don't know exactly what's going on with his game. You know, I wonder if, you know, in recovering from this knee injury, maybe he's more tentative about certain things. I'm not sure. He's not rebounding the way that he did. You know, in 50 games with Providence, he averaged 8.5 rebounds. I mean, what's he averaging now for rebounds? It's not a very good number.
It's got to be mid single digits.
5.1.
Oh wow, okay. You know? Until they have a guy step up, I don't know how they're going to get through this schedule, because, as you said, you know, all of those problems aside, they had a 5-point lead with 3 minutes and 19 seconds to go. And a 14-3 run the rest of the way, and defensive things, and that's mental toughness or grit or determination or chutzpah, whatever word you want to put on it. It's missing that. And when Zuby is the only guy preaching that and doing that, he can't do it himself. And I think we saw that. And the worst part is all the other losses this year, Roger, I could validate for some reason or another. Well, the guard play, and they're still learning, and you know, these guards have been together for a long time. Oh, it's their third game in 3 days, and Tahad Pettiford, another great guard, you know, coming at them. I could validate all of those for good reasons. There is no excuse for losing to this team. Now, that being said, if you can find a guy and you burn the tape, you burn the tape, because I hope you don't go 6 for 22 ever again from layups. Because even if you make some of those, if you make 12 of 22, you still win that game. Because, end of game, a 6-point loss. It wasn't even really a 6-point loss because of all the foul trouble at the end. The margin of victory was getting bigger. Their largest lead of the game was 6 points, which was the final margin of victory. What is still on the table for this team? Because I firmly see them as a bubble team right now, which is baffling when you think of the fact that we were thinking of them as a 1 or a 2 seed coming into the year. And they've got 17 games left to play. I think Butler's a must-win. I think Creighton's an almost must-win. How many games can you lose before you play UConn in February?
Well, the last time that you and I were together doing the show, you and I talked extensively about okay, fine. So it was right after the Kentucky game, I believe.
Yes.
And you and I sort of, what I was trying to communicate to you there was that, okay, fine. They didn't get a signature non-conference win, and that's not good. It doesn't help you with where you're going to be positioned in the tournament field. Okay. But the one thing that you really can't do is you can't have bad losses. And I gave you the example of Pitino's first season with the Red Storm. They missed out on the tournament, even though that they had 20 wins and they had finished very strong, because on their resume, there was, a bad loss, which was the loss to Boston College. I don't think that they're a bubble team yet. However, what are they looking at this week? Road game at Butler. Butler is a better team than they've been the last couple of years, and they have traditionally played pretty well at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Then they have a road game at Creighton, and we all know Creighton is starting to look pretty tough. I know that they lost to Seton Hall, today, but I think that Creighton looked like they were playing really well. Beat
Sure.
Xavier at Xavier by 41 points. I mean, we could be looking at a 3-game losing streak if these guys keep playing the way that they did against Providence. And now you might be talking about them as a bubble team.
Yeah, it's a damn shame. I'm not even sure I can say damn, but I just did, and it's a shame. And it's tough. I hope they turn it around. I think they have the talent to do it, but the panic button's been pressed. Last time I told you I didn't press it, but I knew where it was. Well, it has been pressed. I'm panicking. I'm not jumping ship, but I'm panicking. And that is a sad sight for what we had the rest of the year. Well, we will see, Roger. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. We'll see what they do against Butler, and what I think is a must win. And look forward to hearing your thoughts on that one after we are hopefully, the fan in me is cheering on a very happy win, bounce back win. Door to door, blow the doors off the Bulldogs, win by the St. John's Red Storm. It's a new year full of new opportunities. There's 17 games left, and the door is still open. It's just getting a little closer to shut. So keep the door open, keep tuning in, keep cheering on your Red Storm, and as always, make sure to tune in every week right here for an episode of Court Storming.